Captain Zara Moonwhisper pressed her thin, webbed fingers against the control panel of the Gentle Dawn. The ship shook violently as another explosion rocked the hull. Through the viewing window, she could see the dark shapes of Vorthak warships surrounding her vessel like hungry predators. "Captain, our shields are failing," called out her communications officer, "Tell us." His large, gentle eyes showed the same fear that filled everyone on the bridge. The Cathara were a peaceful people. They had never built weapons, never learned to fight. Their ships were designed for trade and exploration, not war. Zara looked at the screen showing the destruction of New Haven Colony below. Fires burned across the surface where Vorthak forces had landed. Her people were being rounded up like animals, loaded onto transport ships to become slaves. The sight made her heart break. "How long before our communications go down?" she asked. Tellus checked his instruments with shaking hands. "Maybe 5 minutes, Captain. The Vorthak are targeting all our systems." Zara knew this was their last chance. The Vorthak had been attacking Cathara worlds for weeks now. Each colony fell without resistance because the Cathara simply had no way to defend themselves. Their government had tried to call for help from other civilized species, but everyone was either too far away or too afraid of the Vorthak to respond. "Send out a distress call on all emergency frequencies," Zara ordered. "Tell anyone who will listen what is happening here." "But Captain, who would help us?" Tellus asked. "The Galactic Council talks but does nothing. The trading partners we know are peaceful like us. They cannot fight the Vorthak either." Zara thought for a moment. She had heard stories, whispered tales from traders who traveled to the far edges of known space, stories about a species called humans, who came from a world so dangerous that other aliens called them Deathworlders. Most people said these humans were violent and unpredictable, best avoided by civilized beings. "Send the message to everyone," she said firmly. "Even to the humans in the Sol system." Tellus looked shocked. "Captain, the humans are Deathworlders. They might be just as dangerous as the Vorthak." "Our children are being taken as slaves," Zara replied, watching another transport ship lift off from the colony below, packed with Cathara civilians. "What could be worse than that?" Tellus nodded and began composing the message. His fingers moved quickly across the controls as the ship continued to shake from Vorthak weapons fire. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat at his monitoring station in the cold depths of space beyond Pluto. The Terran Deep Space Monitoring Station was humanity's ear to the galaxy, listening for signals, threats, and anything else that might concern Earth. Jake was halfway through his coffee when the emergency signal came in. The computer translated the alien language automatically, and what he read made him sit up straight in his chair. "This is Captain Zara Moonwhisper of the Cathara Coalition vessel Gentle Dawn. Our worlds are under attack by the Vorthak Empire. They are destroying our colonies and enslaving our people. We have no weapons, no way to defend ourselves. Our children are being taken. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help. We are peaceful traders. We have done nothing to deserve this fate." Jake had heard of the Cathara before. They were known throughout the galaxy as honest traders who never cheated anyone and never caused trouble. Their goods were highly valued because of their quality and craftsmanship. They were also completely defenseless. He had also heard of the Vorthak. They were a brutal empire that conquered worlds and enslaved entire populations. Most civilized species avoided them, and those who couldn't hide simply hoped the Vorthak would look elsewhere for victims. Jake immediately forwarded the message to Fleet Admiral Linda Hayes at Terra Defense Command on Earth. Then he kept listening as more signals came in from Cathara space. Each message painted a worse picture than the last. Colonies burning, families separated, children crying as they were loaded onto slave ships. On Earth, Admiral Hayes received Jake's message while she was in a meeting with her senior staff. She read it quickly, then read it again more slowly. Around the conference table, her officers could see her expression growing darker with each word. "How many Cathara worlds are under attack?" she asked her intelligence chief. "At least 12 colonies, Admiral. Maybe more. The Vorthak seem to be targeting their entire trade network." Hayes stood up and walked to the large window overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Earth looked peaceful from here, but she knew the true nature of her species. Humans had fought countless wars throughout their history. They had learned to be warriors out of necessity, living on a world where everything tried to kill them. But they had also learned something else. They had learned to use their warrior instincts to protect those who could not protect themselves. "The Cathara have never harmed anyone," she said quietly. "They trade fairly. They help travelers in need, and they ask for nothing but peaceful coexistence. She turned back to her staff. And now some bunch of slavers thinks they can just take these people's children and turn them into property. The room was silent. Everyone knew that tone in the Admiral's voice. Send out Fleet Order Alpha 7, Hayes commanded. All available dreadnoughts are to respond immediately to Cathara space. This is a humanitarian crisis requiring our full attention. Her communications officer looked uncertain. Admiral, that will mean sending almost our entire battle fleet. 47 dreadnoughts. The other species will see this as a massive military deployment. Hayes smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Good. Let them see exactly what happens when someone attacks innocent people while humans are watching. Back in Cathara space, Captain Moonwhisper felt the gentle dawn shudder as the Vorthak finally broke through their shields. Emergency lights flashed red across the bridge as systems began failing one by one. Captain, incoming transmission, Tellus called out in surprise. It's from the Sol system. The humans have responded. Zara felt her heart jump. What do they say? Tellus listened to his earpiece for a moment, then looked up with wonder in his large eyes. They say help is coming, Captain. They say to hold on just a little longer. Through the viewing window, Zara could see more Vorthak ships approaching. Their situation looked hopeless, but for the first time in days she felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps the stories about the Deathworlders were true. Perhaps they really were as dangerous as everyone said. She just hoped they were dangerous to the right people. Captain Ryan Steele was reviewing training reports in his quarters aboard the TNS Thunderbolt when the emergency alert sounded throughout the massive dreadnought. The deep, urgent tone meant only one thing. Fleet Order Alpha 7 had been issued. Ryan dropped his datapad and rushed to the bridge. Around him, the ship came alive with activity as crew members ran to their stations. The Thunderbolt was over 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a small moon. But it moved through space with surprising grace for something so large. On the bridge, his executive officer, Commander Nick Johnson, was already coordinating with the other ships in their battle group. Captain, we have confirmation from Terra Defense Command. 47 dreadnoughts are being deployed to the Cathara system. Ryan took his command chair and pulled up the mission briefing on his personal screen. As he read about the Cathara situation, his jaw tightened. The images from the attacked colonies showed burning cities and terrified civilians being herded into transport ships. What's our ETA to the Cathara system? He asked. 18 hours at maximum burn, sir, replied his navigation officer. Then set course immediately, and tell Chief Martinez I want every fusion reactor running at peak efficiency. Down in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Paul Martinez was already pushing the Thunderbolt's massive engines to their limits. The fusion reactors that powered the ship could have supplied electricity to an entire planet. But now all that energy was being channeled into the faster-than-light drive system. Sir, we're running hot, called out one of his technicians. The reactors are at 98% output. I don't care if they're at 110%, Martinez replied, checking the energy readings. Those people need help, and we're going to get there as fast as possible. Across space, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of other human dreadnoughts. Captain Amy Rodriguez of the TNS Iron Will was reviewing tactical data with her weapons officer. The Iron Will specialized in long-range missile strikes and carried enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. How many Vorthak ships are we looking at? Rodriguez asked. Intelligence estimates over 200 heavy cruisers, Captain, replied weapons officer Lisa Carter. They outnumber us more than 4 to 1. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Good thing we're not planning a fair fight. Meanwhile, Commander Ben Parker was pushing the TNS Stormbreaker through space at maximum velocity. His ship was smaller than some of the other dreadnoughts, but was designed for speed and precision strikes. Parker had read every report about Vorthak tactics and was already planning how to use his ship's advantages against them. The response was not limited to just the ships already on patrol. Dreadnoughts that had been in dock for repairs launched with work crews still aboard. Ships that had been scheduled for routine maintenance ignored their service requirements and headed straight for Cathara space. Even training vessels with new crews joined the fleet. Admiral Hayes monitored the fleet deployment from her command center on Earth. Wall-mounted screens showed the position of every human dreadnought as they converged on the same destination. It was the largest military response humanity had ever mounted for another species. Admiral, we're receiving communications from several alien governments, reported her communications officer. They're asking about our fleet movements. Hayes understood their concern. 47 human dreadnoughts moving together looked like preparation for a major war. The sight was making every government in the galaxy nervous. Tell them we are responding to a humanitarian crisis, she replied. Any government that has a problem with us, protecting innocent civilians is welcome to file a complaint after we're finished. The news of the human fleet movement spread quickly through galactic communication networks. On the neutral world of Hesser Prime, Intelligence Officer Vrolik stared at his sensors in disbelief. Sir, you need to see this, he called to his superior. The humans are deploying their entire battle fleet. His commander looked at the tactical display showing the positions of the human ships. By the stars, what are they planning? This is enough firepower to conquer half the galaxy. According to their public communications, they are responding to the Cathara distress calls, Vrolik replied. The Cathara, those peaceful traders? The commander shook his head in amazement. The humans are risking a galactic war to help people they barely know? Back on the Thunderbolt, Captain Steele addressed his crew over the ship's internal communication system. Throughout the massive vessel, thousands of men and women stopped what they were doing to listen to their captain's words. Crew of the Thunderbolt, by now you all know our mission. The Cathara people are under attack by slavers who think they can take innocent civilians as property. These are people who have never hurt anyone, who trade fairly and honestly with all species. Steele paused, knowing his words were being recorded and would likely be heard throughout the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire has made a simple mistake. They think that because the Cathara are peaceful, no one will defend them. They think that because the Cathara cannot fight back, they are free to do whatever they want to these people and their children. Throughout the ship, crew members nodded grimly. Many of them had families of their own back on Earth. They are about to learn that there is a difference between being peaceful and being defenseless. The Cathara choose to be peaceful. We choose to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Today, the Vorthak are going to discover what happens when you threaten innocent people while humanity is watching. The crew cheered, and the sound echoed through the corridors of the massive ship. Similar cheers could be heard on dreadnoughts throughout the fleet as captains delivered their own versions of the same message. On the Iron Will, Captain Rodriguez was meeting with her senior officers in the ship's war room. The walls displayed tactical information about Vorthak ships and weapons capabilities. The Vorthak rely on numbers and overwhelming firepower, she explained to her team. They're used to fighting opponents who panic under pressure, but they've never faced coordinated human fleet tactics. Weapons Officer Carter studied the enemy ship designs. Their armor is thick, but their engines are poorly protected. If we can disable their mobility, they become sitting targets. Exactly, Rodriguez agreed. We're going to hit them hard and fast, then use our superior coordination to pick them apart piece by piece. As the human fleet raced through space toward the Cathara system, word of their deployment reached other civilizations throughout the galaxy. Some species expressed concern about human military power. Others quietly cheered that someone was finally standing up to the Vorthak Empire. On a trading station near the galactic core, a group of different alien species watched news reports about the human response. A Cathara merchant who had escaped the initial attacks wept openly as he saw the size of the human fleet. They are sending their entire navy to help us, he whispered. We are not even allies. We have barely traded with them. But they are willing to risk everything to save our people. An old trader from the hegemony nodded slowly. I have dealt with humans before. They are strange creatures. Dangerous, yes, but not in the way most people think. They are most dangerous when they are protecting someone else. The human fleet continued its journey through space, 47 instruments of war racing to the aid of people they had never met, carrying the hopes of an entire peaceful civilization and the fury of a species that would not tolerate the abuse of the innocent. Warlord Krex stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Blood Fang, watching with satisfaction as the last transport ships lifted off from New Haven Colony. Below on the planet's surface, fires still burned from the Vorthak assault, and the remaining Cathara civilians huddled in temporary camps awaiting their turn to be processed as slaves. Krex was a massive creature, even by Vorthak standards. His thick armored hide was covered in scars from countless battles, and his forearms each ended in razor-sharp claws. His species had built their empire through conquest and brutality, taking what they wanted from weaker civilizations. Warlord, we have processed over 50,000 Cathera from this colony alone, reported his intelligence officer, Vex. The younger ones will make excellent laborers. The older ones can be used in the mineral processing centers. Krex nodded approvingly. The Cathara were perfect slaves, intelligent enough to be useful but completely lacking in any aggressive instincts. They would work without rebellion until they died of exhaustion, which made them very valuable in the slave markets. What is the status of the other colonies? Krex asked. 7 more worlds have fallen, Warlord. Our fleet commanders report minimal resistance. The Cathara have no military vessels at all. This has been easier than we anticipated. Krex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Cathara had been a target for years, but the Vorthak had been cautious because of their location near several other civilized systems. However, intelligence reports had confirmed that none of the nearby species had any interest in defending the peaceful traders. Sir, we are detecting some unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system, called out his sensor technician. Multiple objects approaching at high velocity. Krex walked over to the sensor station with mild interest. How many objects? The technician studied his instruments carefully. The readings are strange, Warlord. The energy signatures are much larger than normal ships, but there are only 47 contacts. 47 ships? Krex laughed. Someone is feeling brave today. What species? The signatures match Terran design, sir. They appear to be human vessels. Krex's laughter stopped. He had encountered humans before in isolated incidents along the border regions. They were known throughout the galaxy as dangerous fighters, but they rarely involved themselves in affairs outside their own territory. Humans? What would they want with the Cathara? Unknown, sir. But Warlord, these energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These ships are massive, larger than our heavy cruisers. Krex considered this information. His fleet consisted of over 200 heavy cruisers, the pride of the Vorthak Navy. Even if the humans had sent their largest ships, they were still heavily outnumbered. Alert all ships in the system, he ordered. Form battle formation, but do not fire unless fired upon. I want to hear what these Deathworlders have to say. On the bridge of the TNS Retribution, Admiral Hayes watched her fleet drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Cathara system. The massive human dreadnoughts materialized in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapon systems. Admiral, we have visual contact with the Vorthak fleet, reported her tactical officer. Confirmed 214 enemy vessels in system. They have formation around the 4th planet. Hayes studied the tactical display. The Vorthak ships were impressive by most standards, but they looked small compared to the human dreadnoughts. Each of her ships was designed to fight entire fleets, not individual vessels. Communications, open a channel to all ships in the system, she ordered. Throughout Cathara space, every vessel detected the incoming transmission. On Vorthak ships, universal translators worked to convert the human words into their own language. Hidden Cathara survivors listened with growing hope as a new voice spoke with calm authority. This is Fleet Admiral Linda Hayes of the Terran Defense Force. Vorthak vessels. You are in violation of 17 galactic accords regarding the protection of non-military populations. You will cease all hostile actions and withdraw immediately or face the consequences. On the Bloodfang, Warlord Krex studied the human fleet through his view screen. The ships were indeed massive, but 47 vessels against his 200 seemed like reasonable odds. The humans were clearly bluffing, trying to scare him into retreat with a show of force. Open communications with the human admiral, he ordered. Admiral Hayes saw the incoming transmission from the Vorthak flagship. She had read the intelligence reports about Vorthak brutality and knew exactly what kind of creature she was dealing with. So, Admiral Hayes, Krex began, his image appearing on her screen. The sight of the scarred four-armed warrior was intimidating by design. You travel far from home to threaten the mighty Vorthak Empire. These Cathara are not your allies. They are not even your trading partners. What business is this of yours? Hayes looked directly into the alien's multiple eyes. These people send out a distress call. Their children are being taken as slaves. That makes it our business. Krex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. You think 47 ships can stand against the full might of our fleet? You Deathworlders are known for your courage, but this is simple foolishness. The Cathara are peaceful people who have done nothing to deserve this treatment. Hayes continued calmly. You will release your prisoners and withdraw from their space. Or what? Krex challenged. You will fight my entire fleet with your handful of ships? Even Deathworlders are not that stupid. Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Warlord, you have made several mistakes today. The first was attacking innocent people. The second was taking their children. But the biggest mistake you made was assuming we came here to negotiate. Krex's eyes narrowed. You threaten me, human? No threat, Warlord. Just a statement of fact. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin releasing your prisoners and withdrawing from this system. The Vorthak warlord's roar of anger could be heard throughout his bridge. You come into my conquered territory with 47 ships and make demands? I have 200 heavy cruisers. You are outnumbered more than 4-1. Admiral Hayes looked around her bridge at the calm, professional faces of her crew. On similar bridges throughout the human fleet, thousands of men and women waited for the word to act. Warlord Krex, let me explain something about humans that you clearly don't understand. When we come to protect innocent people, we don't come to fight fair. We come to win. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their command ship. Krex saw the human weapon systems beginning to charge and realized these Deathworlders were serious. You think your small fleet can defeat the Vorthak Empire? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have enslaved entire species. Yes, Hayes replied quietly. And today that ends. Krex made his fatal mistake. Instead of reconsidering his position, instead of remembering the stories about human military capability, he let his pride and anger control his decision. All ships, attack formation. Destroy these arrogant Deathworlders. Show them the price of challenging the Vorthak Empire. Admiral Hayes cut the communication and turned to Captain Steele, who was coordinating the fleet attack from his position aboard the Thunderbolt. Captain Steele, you are authorized to engage. Show them exactly what Deathworlders are capable of. Throughout the human fleet, weapons systems that had been charging quietly suddenly blazed to life. 47 Dreadnoughts prepared to demonstrate why humanity had earned its reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous species. The first shot fired in the Battle of Cathera came from the TNS Thunderbolt's main railgun. Captain Steele had targeted Warlord Krex's flagship with precision that could only come from decades of training and the finest targeting computers humanity could build. The tungsten penetrator left the railgun at 15% of light speed. It crossed the distance between the human and Vorthak fleets in less than 3 seconds, moving so fast that most sensors couldn't track it properly. When it struck the Bloodfang, the impact was devastating. The projectile punched through the Vorthak flagship's thick armor as if it were paper. It tore through deck after deck, venting atmosphere and debris into space before finally exiting through the rear hull. Secondary explosions began immediately as damaged systems overloaded. On his bridge, Warlord Krex picked himself up from the deck where the impact had thrown him. Alarms screamed throughout his ship and his crew scrambled to assess the damage. Half his bridge officers were dead or unconscious and multiple hull breaches were causing rapid decompression. Damage report, he roared. Sir, we have lost main power to sections 4 through 12. His engineering officer reported with panic in his voice. The human's weapon went completely through our ship. We are venting atmosphere from 17 breaches. Krex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. One shot from the human ship had crippled his flagship. The Bloodfang was the most heavily armored vessel in the Vorthak fleet, designed to withstand concentrated fire from multiple enemies. But the human weapon had penetrated it like it was made of thin metal. His shock turned to rage. All ships concentrate fire on that human vessel. Destroy it! But the human fleet was not waiting for the Vorthak to coordinate their response. The moment the Thunderbolt fired, every other dreadnought in the fleet opened up with their own weapon systems. Captain Amy Rodriguez aboard the TNS Iron Will had been waiting for this moment. Her ship specialized in long-range missile strikes, and her weapons officer Lisa Carter had programmed their entire missile inventory for maximum effectiveness against Vorthak armor. Fire missile batteries 1 through 8, Rodriguez ordered calmly. The Iron Will launched 64 missiles simultaneously. Each missile was the size of a small fighter craft and carried enough explosive power to level a city block. They accelerated rapidly toward the Vorthak formation, their advanced guidance systems selecting individual targets. The Vorthak point defense systems tried to intercept the incoming missiles, but they had never faced weapons designed with human military technology. The missiles used advanced stealth systems and unpredictable flight paths that confused the alien targeting computers. 23. Vorthak cruisers disappeared in brilliant explosions as the human missiles found their targets. The remainder of the missile barrage struck other ships, causing massive damage even when they didn't achieve complete destruction. Commander Ben Parker's TNS Stormbreaker demonstrated a different approach to warfare. His ship was smaller and faster than the other Dreadnoughts, designed for precision strikes rather than overwhelming firepower. Parker had studied the Vorthak ship designs and identified their weak points. "Target their engine sections," Parker ordered his weapons officer. "Disable them, don't destroy them. I want them alive to see what happens next." The Stormbreaker's focused laser arrays began methodically targeting Vorthak engines. The precision was surgical. Each shot disabled a ship's propulsion without causing fatal damage. Within minutes, dozens of Vorthak vessels found themselves dead in space, unable to maneuver or retreat. Throughout the Vorthak fleet, panic began to set in. Their ships were being destroyed or disabled faster than they could respond. The human Dreadnoughts moved with coordination that seemed impossible. Each ship knew exactly where the others were and what they were targeting, creating a deadly dance of destruction across the battlefield. "Sir, we have lost over 60 ships in the first 5 minutes, reported Krex's tactical officer, his voice shaking with fear. "The humans are using weapons we have never encountered before." Krex watched his fleet being systematically destroyed on the tactical display. The human ships barely seemed to be trying. They moved with calm precision, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns that left no room for escape. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They only have 47 ships." What Krex didn't understand was that human Dreadnoughts were not designed to fight other ships of similar size. They were designed to fight entire fleets. Each vessel carried the firepower of dozens of conventional warships, concentrated into a single, heavily armored hull. Captain Tony Walsh aboard the TNS Relentless had positioned his battle group to block the Vorthak retreat route. When several dozen enemy ships tried to flee the system, they found their path blocked by the massive human vessels. "Sir, multiple Vorthak ships approaching our position at high speed," his tactical officer reported. Walsh studied the fleeing enemy ships on his display. They were running in panic, abandoning their formation and their comrades. "Target their engines. Disable them, but don't destroy them. We want prisoners to answer for what they did to the Cathara." The Relentless opened fire with its point defense lasers, weapons normally used to intercept incoming missiles. But against the fleeing Vorthak ships, they were devastatingly effective. Precise laser strikes disabled engine after engine, leaving the enemy vessels drifting helplessly in space. Hidden in the asteroid field near the fourth planet, Captain Zara Moonwhisper watched the battle through her ship's damaged sensors. The Gentle Dawn was barely functional, but her communications system still worked well enough to monitor the human fleet transmissions. "Tell us, are you recording this?" she whispered to her communications officer. "Yes, Captain, but I can barely believe what I am seeing. The humans are destroying the entire Vorthak fleet. Ships that terrorized our worlds for weeks are being eliminated in minutes." Zara watched as another group of Vorthak vessels disappeared under concentrated human fire. The same ships that had seemed so terrifying and unstoppable were now fleeing in panic from the human Dreadnoughts. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship," Tellus reported. Admiral Hayes' image appeared on the Gentle Dawn's main screen. The human looked calm despite commanding a battle that was reshaping the balance of power in this entire region of the galaxy. "Captain Moonwhisper, this is Admiral Hayes. Are you and your crew safe?" Zara could barely find words to respond. "We are alive, Admiral, but our ship is badly damaged. Medical ships are en route to your position. We will have you aboard a proper vessel within the hour." Hayes paused as her tactical officer reported something off-screen. "Captain, can you tell us how many Cathara civilians are being held on the planet below?" "Over 50,000 from this colony alone, Admiral. They are in temporary holding areas awaiting transport to slave processing centers." Hayes nodded grimly. "Not anymore, they aren't. We will have rescue teams on the surface within 2 hours." The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted exactly 37 minutes. When the weapons finally stopped firing, the Vorthak fleet no longer existed as a fighting force. Over 150 ships had been completely destroyed. The remainder were either disabled and drifting or had surrendered outright. Warlord Krex found himself aboard a crippled ship with no engines, no weapons, and life support failing. His mighty fleet had been annihilated by a force less than 1/4 its size. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human admiral," his communications officer reported. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen again, but this time she was addressing a defeated enemy. "Warlord Krex, you will order all your remaining ships to surrender immediately. Any vessel that does not comply will be destroyed." Krex looked around his ruined bridge. His dreams of Vorthak expansion had died with his fleet. The humans had demonstrated a level of military capability that made resistance impossible. "We surrender," he said. "Quietly. You will also order the immediate release of all Cathara prisoners on the planet below. Your surviving crews will be taken into custody pending trial for crimes against sentient beings." As Krex gave the orders for surrender, he realized that the Vorthak Empire had just learned a lesson that would echo throughout the galaxy. There was a difference between being strong and being unstoppable. The humans had shown that they were both. 3 days after the Battle of Cathara, the human fleet had transformed from an instrument of war into a massive humanitarian operation. Medical ships arrived first, followed by engineering vessels, supply transports, and specialized rescue craft. The same military force that had destroyed the Vorthak fleet was now working around the clock to help the Cathara survivors. Captain Zara Moonwhisper stood in the medical bay of the TNS Mercy, watching human doctors treat Cathara civilians who had been rescued from the slave camps below. The contrast was remarkable. These same humans who had shown such devastating military capability were now showing incredible gentleness as they cared for wounded alien children. Commander Katie Brooks, the chief medical officer, approached Zara with a data pad showing the treatment statistics. Katie was young for her rank, but her skill and compassion had already saved dozens of Cathara lives. "Captain Moonwhisper, we have processed over 8,000 civilians from your colony so far," Katie reported. "Most are suffering from malnutrition and trauma, but they will recover with proper care." Zara looked at the data with amazement. "Commander, why are your people doing all this? The battle is over. You could have simply left after defeating the Vorthak." Katie seemed surprised by the question. "These people need medical care. Their homes and infrastructure were damaged in the attacks. We can't just leave them to suffer. But we are not your responsibility," Zara said softly. "We are not allies or trade partners. You barely knew we existed before our distress call." Katie paused in her work and looked directly at the Cathara captain. "Captain, that is exactly why we came. Because you had no one else to help you." On the planet below, Chief Warren Clark supervised human engineering teams working alongside Cathara civilians to repair the damaged colony. The humans had brought advanced construction equipment and materials, but they were also teaching the Cathara how to use the technology themselves. Warren was a practical man who believed in fixing things rather than replacing them. He had spent 3 days studying Cathara architecture and engineering principles so his teams could repair the buildings properly instead of just building human-style replacements. The power grid should be fully restored by tomorrow, he told the local Cathara administrator, an elderly being named Keeper Thane. "Your water treatment facility needs more work, but we can have it operational within a week." Thane watched human and Cathara workers collaborating on the repairs. "Chief Clark, your people work very hard to help us. But surely this is costing your government tremendous resources." Warren looked puzzled. "Keeper, do you have children?" "Yes, I have 3 offspring," Thane replied. "If you saw someone else's children in danger, would you help them?" "Of course," Thane answered without hesitation. Warren smiled and returned to his work. "Then you understand why we are here." The news of humanity's response to the Cathara crisis spread throughout the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On dozens of worlds, different species discussed what they had witnessed with a mixture of awe and concern. On the neutral trading world of Nexus Station, representatives from multiple civilizations gathered in the famous diplomatic lounge to share information and rumors about the human action. Ambassador Vex of the Hegemony Council spoke first. The humans deployed 47 dreadnoughts to help people they barely knew. This level of military response is unprecedented for a humanitarian mission. Trade Representative Solon from the Orion Federation nodded agreement. The economic cost alone must be staggering. Deploying that many capital ships, the fuel, the crew time, the medical supplies they are providing. The humans must be spending billions of credits to help the Cathara. That is exactly what worries me, added Security Chief Mora from the Centauri Alliance. What species commits that level of resources for strangers? What do the humans really want from the Cathara? An old Cathara trader named Elder Vess, who had escaped the initial attacks, had been listening to the conversation quietly. Finally, he spoke up. Respected ambassadors, you are asking the wrong question. You ask what the humans want from us. But I have dealt with humans before, and I can tell you they want nothing from us. The other aliens looked skeptical. Nothing? Ambassador Vex questioned. No one commits this level of resources for nothing. Elder Vess stood slowly, his age showing in his careful movements. The humans want nothing from us because they already have what they came for. They came to stop innocent people from being hurt. They came to rescue children who were being taken as slaves. They came because someone needed help and no one else would provide it. He looked around the room at the various alien representatives. You all speak of costs and resources and political implications. The humans speak of protecting children. Perhaps that tells us who truly understands the situation. Back in the Cathara system, Admiral Hayes was meeting with Captain Moonwhisper in her private office aboard the TNS Retribution. The office was Spartan by alien standards, decorated only with pictures of Earth and small models of famous human ships. Admiral, I must ask you something that has been troubling me, Zara said carefully. Your people have shown incredible kindness to mine, but your military capability is also terrifying. How can the same species be both so gentle and so dangerous? Hayes walked to the viewport that showed the ongoing rescue operations around New Haven Colony. Human ships moved back and forth like busy insects, carrying supplies and personnel to where they were needed most. Captain, humans come from what you call a death world. Everything on our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to be dangerous because we had to be dangerous to survive. She turned back to Zara. But we also learned something else. We learned that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak. We learned that survival means nothing if you survive alone. I have heard that humans are territorial and aggressive, Zara said. Hayes smiled. We are, extremely territorial and aggressive. But our territory now includes anyone who needs our protection. And we are most aggressive toward those who hurt innocent people. Admiral Hayes activated her communication system and opened a channel to the entire human fleet. Throughout the dozens of ships, thousands of crew members stopped their work to listen to their commander. People of the Terran Defense Force, in 3 days we have rescued over 50,000 Cathara civilians, destroyed one of the galaxy's most brutal slave-trading operations, and sent a message that will be heard across known space. You have shown the galaxy that humans do not start fights. But we will finish them when innocent people are threatened. She paused, looking out at the busy rescue operations continuing around them. Today, every species in the galaxy knows that Earth stands ready to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Some will fear us for this power. Others will respect us for how we use it. But everyone will know that as long as humans exist, slavers and bullies will never be safe, and the innocent will never stand alone. The response from the fleet was immediate and overwhelming. Cheers echoed through the corridors of every ship as thousands of voices expressed their pride in what they had accomplished. As the weeks passed and the immediate crisis ended, the long-term implications became clear. The Vorthak Empire, faced with the complete destruction of their primary fleet, signed peace treaties with all their neighboring civilizations. Other aggressive species quietly canceled expansion plans, unwilling to risk drawing human attention. More importantly, applications for trade agreements with humanity increased dramatically. Species that had never shown interest in dealing with the dangerous Deathworlders suddenly wanted to establish diplomatic relations with Earth, but perhaps the most significant change was among peaceful civilizations like the Cathara. For the first time in generations, they could focus on growth and development without fear of conquest. They knew that somewhere in the galaxy, human ships patrolled the darkness, ready to respond to the next distress call. Captain Moonwhisper eventually returned to Cathara Prime with her repaired ship and a full report of the human response. When she addressed the Cathara High Council, her words were broadcast throughout their space and beyond. The humans call themselves Deathworlders, and other species fear them for this reputation, but I have seen the truth about humanity. They are dangerous because they choose to be dangerous to those who would harm the innocent. They are Deathworlders not because they bring death, but because they stand between death and those who cannot protect themselves. Far from Earth, in the depths of space where no civilized beings usually traveled, human dreadnoughts continued their eternal patrol. They moved through the darkness like silent guardians, their sensors always listening for the next distress call, ready to prove once again that in a dangerous galaxy, no one stands alone while humanity watches.